Well, just taking a look at the award itself, clearly you are a holdings company, you're basically a conglomerate, and we know that many investors for some time now have been saying how conglomerates have been out of fashion since the early 80s, but you do play an active role in many of your businesses. What gave you the competitive edge to scoop this award?
Well, I don't know what the criteria of the judges were. I think obviously HCI has a unique history. We've essentially started as a trade union investment company and have grown the company over the last 13 years from a modest capital base of about 500 million in market cap to now over 10 billion rand. So I think obviously the nature and character of the company has evolved over time into a number of different big investments. But I think the character of the company being controlled by a trade union is unique in this country. And the fact that not only have we built up a number of businesses from scratch, I think also the fact that there's been a large social and philanthropic component to our business that has probably given us a unique feature.
I mean, you're talking about trade unions, and we know the South African Clothing and Textiles Union is a 40% shareholder of HCI, and you did mention that, you know, initially the company did start off as a union investment company, but just taking a look at the trend that has emerged in South Africa, because more and more unions are starting to become involved in businesses. Do you think that it's a healthy trend that is emerging?
Look, I don't think many are becoming involved. I think less are becoming involved in the business. I think what's happened in the early stages, there was a phase, I think when we started, and then a number of trade unions followed to build up investment companies. I don't think at this last period many have expanded their business quite considerably. In fact, I think there are probably only two significant investment holding companies. One is controlled by SACTU, which is through HCI, and I think the other one's controlled by the mine workers.
But more and more unions are becoming involved in businesses, though, and starting to invest. I mean, I allude to Top TV, and we know that Kusatsu is also quite interested in, you know, in terms of shareholding there. So it is something that is going to start coming to the fore. But taking a look at the synergies between business and unions, do you think that it's deteriorating, or do you think that it's starting to gain traction?
No, the thing is, I think one must differentiate investment of Kusatsu, say, into Top TV. It may be very well loan funding. It's not necessarily the capital of the unions. I think the union movement is still focusing on its primary objective, which is to improve the conditions of working people. I think those that have taken the view that you want to build a capital base for unions to improve the philanthropic and social side of the unions is essentially what we've been doing. So the benefits of the investments that we undertake essentially flow back to the workers' organisation, and they in turn don't spend that money on the activities of the union, but invest those in activities that will improve the social benefits for working people.
And of course, one of the industries that you are involved in is the textile industry, and looking at Ceardale, and we know this company has come under significant pressure and continues to come under pressure. Looking at your investments in this industry, and given the fact that the rand keeps on strengthening, we keep seeing cheap imports from China, what is your strategy going forward, given the fact that it's a bleeding industry at this point?
Well, look, I think a lot of work's been done over the last period, both in collaboration with the union and in areas we've differed with the union, how to take and turn around Ceardale. I think a lot of work's been done in diminishing certain areas of the business, in the textile area and the clothing sector. Again, these are just drawn by circumstances. I think we're quite confident that the measures that have been put in place in the company to turn it around are beginning to take traction, and that the core of the business that we've been able to sustain and manage is improving. So over the next period, we're quite positive that the business will turn around.
Well, how much money exactly are you going to be putting in before it becomes economically unviable for you?
Well, I think at the moment we've done what's necessary to cut back on staff, and those have been absolutely necessary. I think we've reorganized the business in terms of how it's managed. We've improved the productivity of the business. I can't give the exact numbers of the exact size of the capital that's required. I think we've adequately capitalized the business going forward. We think we're on a turnaround now and on a growth strategy going forward.
Do you think that South Africa can become competitive in the textile space?
Probably not. Realistically, I think there are much more competitive places around the world. I don't think South Africa's textile industry is a viable industry going forward.
Let's take a look at your media offering, because that has gained a lot of traction, and you came with a very new offering a while ago, and you shook up the industry with a 24-hour news strategy that is clearly working quite well for you. Where to next?
Well, I think the main focus now is Pan-African. I think the major growth is going to be in Africa and outside Africa. I think we see the news potentially, it's already in Southern Africa. We're planning in discussions to take it to the rest of Africa. And then we think there's probably a potential international market. The diaspora is one market. I think the world citizens another market. So to the extent we are able to get carriage on other international platforms, we think that the prospects of our 24-hour news service, it could be the African voice to the rest of the world, interpreting issues on a global base from an African perspective.
And you're still waiting to hear from the Competition Commission with regards to the proposed merger between Togo and Gold Reef. When do you expect this deal to go through?
Probably by the end of the year, early next year.
And listings still on track?
From our point of view, it is really on track. Yes.
Fantastic. Capitalism and unionism, just give us your perspective in the South African context, given the fact that we've seen inflation, above inflation wage increases, and many foreign investors saying that this is going to be one of the issues that will pull South Africa's growth back in a very highly competitive global environment. Your view on that?
Look, I think there's a real challenge going forward, and the challenge is to create jobs in South Africa. And I think depending on how the social partnership is constructed between government, labour and business about a growth strategy, I think one of the key issues is about how we're going to improve the relation between union and business. I think the challenge for the unions is to see how they're going to not only represent their workers, but potentially work in a way that will grow jobs and hopefully then consequently grow their union base. If they're only going to focus on their members and defending without creating new initiatives and being creative about what those possibilities are, I think there's probably going to be more conflict. So really what one's going to have to develop over the next period is a very sensible and pragmatic plan of job creation, and the unions will have to play a role in that particular initiative.
And very quickly, what do you think the biggest issue is, faces entrepreneurs at this point in time in South Africa?
I think probably capital. I think
apart from funding, because that's obviously the obvious challenge.
I think I think opportunities really to be given to people. I think in my experience in just listening over the last 2 days at this Ernst Young event is just the number of people that are doing things and the depth of talent that exists in this country and the opportunities that exist. But obviously you need capital to do that. I think legislation needs to be more flexible to create opportunities for people. But I'm encouraged by what I've heard and seen over this last period.